Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. We thank GoFan and VNN, the exclusive sponsors of the UIAAA Connection. Now operating as one combined company, GoFan and VNN offer a seamless experience through digital ticketing and athletic websites. They make it easy to direct fans to one central place for schedules, communication, and tickets for both home and away events. We appreciate GoFan and VNN for their continued support and exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Ken Crawford, Certified Athletic Administrator. The district, well, let me see, what exactly is your title at the district? The district...
I'm the Executive Director over Support Services and Athletics.
Okay. I knew it was something like that. Anyway, welcome to the podcast, Ken.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
Yeah. So I grew up in rural eastern Idaho, about 7 miles outside of a small town called Emmett. It's about 40 miles northwest of Boise, kind of towards the Oregon border. So it's very, a lot of agricultural type stuff there. Just a one high school town and county.
It's not on the road to McCall. That's a separate highway.
You can get to McCall from there. So there is a way to get there from Emmett. Yeah, it's a little bit out of the way.
Okay, so, perfect.
Yeah, so excuse me. So I lived there pretty much my entire life until I graduated, and we lived on a farm, had animals, stuff like that. So those were all of my first jobs had to do with agriculture and farming and stuff. So like when I was 11, my very first job was working in the orchards, trapping gophers so that they didn't kill the trees, and then that moved into laying sprinkler pipe and bucking hay, driving tractor, all that type of stuff. So those were most of my summer jobs that I actually got paid for. Otherwise, it was not getting paid for splitting wood and feeding the chickens and the horses and all of that type of stuff.
So did you get a chance to play in a small town out on a farm? Did you get a chance was there like Little League baseball, Little League basketball?
Yeah. My parents taught me to work hard, but it also made me appreciate the opportunities that I was given to play sports. Maybe it was because if I was playing, then I didn't have to do the chores, at least at that time. I could delay it a little bit later in the day. So I grew up playing Little League baseball. So I played baseball from the time I was 5, Little League football when I was 11. That was the first year that my town had Little League football. So I got to play that year. I was kind of big for my age, so I didn't get to play a whole lot because I exceeded the weight limit, unfortunately, at the time. So only when we played older teams did I get to play. And then I started wrestling when I was 12, when I got to the junior high. So that was kind of my life as a kid, working on the farm, and then enjoying being able to play rec and junior high and high school sports that really opened up a lot of opportunities for me. We never want kids to just have their identity be sports, but it did help to create my identity for me and gave me a lot of things to work towards and to enjoy, and helped to shape most of my life. And so I'm very appreciative that my parents were supportive enough to allow me to do that. Like, we didn't have a lot of money, so I never did like really comp sports and stuff like that, but they were very supportive of me, and one of them would always try and be at my games, which I always appreciated, and I try to do the same for my kids today.
Perfect. Let's have you share with our audience some of the mentors, the teachers, the coaches in your young life and your professional life that made a difference to you.
Yeah, so obviously my parents were a great influence, David and Linda Crawford. They helped me to not only work hard, but appreciate getting an education. And maybe it was because I didn't want to spend the rest of my life shoveling manure. And so it made me want to go to
Yeah.
school and get a good job. But they really helped me in that area. I had some great coaches in high school. My baseball and football coach was Pat Daniels, and my wrestling coach was Rick Wainberg. And they really showed me what a coach should be like. Like, they cared about me, they connected with me. I had coaches that weren't great coaches and were kind of an example of what not to be, but these were coaches that taught me what coaches should be. And so as I got older and began coaching and stuff, that really helped set a foundation or basis for how I wanted to influence kids, and ultimately led me to getting an education in secondary ed. Excuse me, I apologize. I had the opportunity. I was fortunate enough to get to go to BYU, and I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. At first, I thought I wanted to study medicine, but that it wasn't. It wasn't a good fit for me. I had lost the passion. I actually had an accident when I was 17 that kind of really affected me quite a bit and changed sort of some of the trajectory of my life. And so medicine didn't really interest me anymore. And it took me a little while. And I had enjoyed teaching others as a missionary in England, but I wasn't convinced that was the path I should go. And people would always say, "Oh, you're never going to make any money," and stuff like that. And I started thinking about some of these great coaches that I had, and they still had a home and a car and a good family, and they were able to provide for them, and they loved what they did. And that was ultimately what led me to reflect and be like, you know what, this is something that I want to do, and I want to make a difference in young kids' lives. And so that's why I ended up going into education. I was fortunate enough to, at BYU, I was able to walk onto the wrestling team as a freshman. Mark Schultz was the coach at the time. It was his first year as the head coach there. And I'm eternally grateful to him for giving me a chance to walk on. And ultimately, I was able to earn a scholarship and wrestle that first year at BYU. I left on a 2-year church mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I went to England, and that's where I really developed my love for teaching. And then when I came back, I probably had too many fish and chips and that type of stuff, and was not in shape for wrestling, and so I was not able to be on the wrestling team that first year back, but I still wanted to stay connected with athletics. And so I was able to get a job in the athletic weight room, where I was able to work with several of the other programs. I still worked with wrestling, so some of my former teammates, but then I also worked with football and track and basketball. So that was some great experience for me to learn kind of that aspect of being an athlete from a coaching standpoint. And then BYU announced that they were cutting the wrestling program, and so some of the guys transferred to other schools. It opened up some opportunities. I had been back for a little while and was able to get back into shape, and so I actually walked on to the wrestling team for a second time and got a scholarship and finished out that last year. That was my junior year, and then in 1999 they finished the program, and I wasn't going to go anywhere else, and I was able to start my student teaching and bring this love of wrestling and sports and teaching together. And I did my student teaching at Orem High and was able to get my first coaching job at Orem High with the wrestling team there. And so that was my first opportunity to be involved in high school athletics. And so that was a great opportunity. And once I finished that, I got my first teaching job in Heber at Wasatch Mountain Junior High. Had some great mentors there. Jim Judd and Justin Kelly were phenomenal. Justin was one of my co-teachers and was also the junior high wrestling coach. And so I assisted him, but he taught me a ton about connecting with kids and just organization and balancing classroom and coaching and home life and that type of stuff. And so I'm grateful to those guys and everything that they did for me. And so that helped a lot. I was there for 6 years, and it was a great time to be a wrestling coach. I mostly coached at the junior high, but also had opportunities to help out at the high school as well. And the high school won 6 state championships in a row while I was there. So that was fun to be a part of and to see those kids grow and excel and go on to college and wrestle at the Division I level. And then a couple of years into teaching there, my wife was talking to me, and she asked me, "Hey, have you ever thought about being an administrator?" And
Which
I
was
had,
going to be my next question. So
yeah,
continue on how you got into
yeah.
administration.
Well, so maybe it's because she was looking at my paychecks. I don't know. But she asked me if I'd thought about it, and I had, tying in one of the other topics that we were talking about discussing. I actually got into athletic administration while I was teaching in Heber. I took on a second job at the Oakley School. That's a private school, and they needed somebody to teach PE and run their athletics program. So that was actually my first introduction, I want to say in 2003, 2004, to being an athletic director. And I was able to do that. But in the meantime, I had this plan of going back to school and becoming an administrator. As my wife, I appreciate her for seeing that vision in me and recognizing some of my leadership capabilities. And so I applied and got accepted and was able to go back and get my administrative endorsement. And after 4 years of teaching, I stayed in Heber and became the administrative intern for 2 years, continued coaching and growing as an administrator. And then in 2008 is when I got the opportunity to come to Ogden. They had an opening for district athletic director, and I applied for it and have been very fortunate to be here ever since. So I had great administrators that helped guide me. Gary Reed was instrumental in helping me to get to where I am today. So my first 3 years as an administrator, I oversaw obviously athletics, but I also had like the swimming pools, driver's ed, health and PE, those type of programs. And I thought, okay, now I'm going to go back into the schools. I'm going to be probably an assistant principal, and then maybe a principal. And that was sort of the plan I had laid out in my mind. And Gary Reed, who was the director of support services at the time, came to me and said, "Hey, I'm retiring this year. You may want to consider my job." And I was like, "I don't want your job. You've got a lot of stuff on your plate." And he's like, "Well, I've been in both positions. I've been a principal and I've been a district administrator." And he's like, "I can tell you that this position is much more family friendly. You're not supervising dances and games till 10, 11 o'clock at night. You have a little bit more flexibility in your schedule, those type of things." And so I had this internal conflict. Do I do what I want to do, or do I do what's best for my family? And then when I verbalized it for the first time, it was a no-brainer that I do what's best for my family. And I've never regretted that decision since. I've been very fortunate. Currently, Luke Rasmussen, who's our superintendent, and Zane Wolstenhume, that's our business administrator. I report to both of them. They have been phenomenal leaders, not only as mentors, but as co-workers to really help us progress and do some amazing things here in Ogden.
Well, Luke's a former football guy, so he gets it.
He is.
My
Yep.
My son-in-law, who actually is hanging out a lot in Ogden now, is good friends with Luke from their old days. I think it goes all the way back to when they were at Snow
Okay.
years and years ago. So there you go. So let me ask you this, Ken. You've been an AD, and then of course you're over ADs, and then moved up in the district. But the job of AD, how has it changed since you first became aware of it and first became an AD almost 20 years ago?
Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest differences is how technology has been able to simplify and streamline things. I mean, it was a lot of paper pushing and things like that, making phone calls. It was a lot of manual entry as well, and now we don't have to spend so much time behind the desk pushing papers. I think it allows us to be out more at the game, supporting the kids, helping supervise, supporting our coaches and our programs, connecting with parents, those type of things. So to me, that's probably one of the biggest differences since I started as an AD.
Perfect. Let me ask you this. I know that you're certified and have been certified for years, and also a lifetime member of the NIAAA. So talk about the importance of becoming certified and becoming a member of the NIAAA.
Yeah, joining the UIAAA and NIAAA and getting certified was one of the first things that I did when I became an administrator in Ogden. I didn't really know about it the first time I was an AD that 1 year at Oakley School, so I wasn't familiar with it. But when I started here in Ogden, I can't remember who I talked to, but somebody kind of suggested, hey, this would be a good way to really learn more about it and to connect and network and help build sort of that base that will help you to be successful. And so it was really one of the first things that I did. It really provided training for me. It gave me a lot of resources. Going to the conferences helped me get involved, and as I said, make connections. That was the first time that I met you,
Sure.
and several other people that I still consider friends and can know that I can reach out to if I have a question. And so that's really been something that I did from the very beginning and continue to this day because of the networking and the friendships and connections that it's helped me to build. And part of it too is bouncing ideas off of one another. We've been able to do a lot of really amazing things here in Ogden, that has to do with like performance pay and expanding the options that we provide for coaches. So it's not just based on if a coach is able to go on to state and how far they go now, which a lot of other districts do, but we also provide things like performance pay for them setting a team goal for GPA and for attendance. And if they hit those goals, then they're able to get additional pay there. We also have performance pay for them connecting with their feeder programs and offering clinics and that type of stuff. So we're paying them for that. And then we created a professional development fund so that they can attend conferences and stuff. All of those ideas came from different things that I learned or saw or heard about from other districts and sort of put them together to try and create an environment that will help to retain and keep good coaches.
Great suggestions. Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Ken. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. So this this actually ties in with my athletics journey. So when I was 17, I just finished football season. Had a great season. Was all region. I had placed fourth in state the year before. I was competing. I was going to be competing for a state title that year, my senior year. And 3 days into the wrestling season, I'd also been named team captain for wrestling. So like everything seemed to be going my way, right? And 3 days into the wrestling season, my young men's group, we decided to make wooden toys for Christmas to, be able to give out to needy families and stuff. And probably my biggest regret, I was making a wooden toy. I was making a doll, and I had made it, and I thought the body was just a little bit too long. So I was like, I'm going to trim off just a little bit more. And so I turned on the saw. It was a radial arm saw. And so I turned it on, and something caught my attention over to the left. And so I turned and looked as I was pulling on the saw. And when you're using a saw and you hit like a knot, it kind of drains the power, and then it kind
Right.
of comes back. So the saw made that sound, and I remember my first thought was, I don't remember there being a knot in that piece of wood. And I turned around and looked down. Sure enough, there was not a knot in that piece of wood. There, instead, I had amputated 2 of my fingers, and so I don't know if you've ever noticed, but I actually don't have an index finger.
I've never noticed that.
It went through. I clipped my ring finger. It went through the middle joint of my middle finger, and then took off the second knuckle of my pointer finger, and so that was pretty hard for a 17-year-old kid to. I mean, it would be hard for anybody to go through, but like
Sure.
I really felt I was peaking, and so I really regret not paying more attention to detail and staying focused, and I allowed some little distraction to pull me away. The thing that I learned from it, though, I for several weeks. This was in December, for leading up through Christmas. I've been in the hospital for multiple days. I was released Christmas time, and just asking why did this happen to me, and not to get too spiritual, but basically one night while I was laying in bed crying, asking why this happened to me, I had this impression that basically told me one day I would find out why, but everything was going to be okay. And after that, kind of that anger and bitterness went away, and I had a resolve to come back. The doctors told me that I wouldn't be able to play football again. I wouldn't be able to wrestle again. And it helped to solidify, I don't know if you want to call it a fire or a desire or what, to prove people wrong. That when people tell me I can't do something, that I have this desire to prove them wrong. And so even though I was told I wouldn't be able to wrestle again, I did everything I could to try and get back in shape. It was hard. I obviously couldn't wrestle at the time. I hadn't been cleared.
Sure.
Every time I go back to the doctor, I'd say, could I wrestle? He'd say no. You'd have to wear a cast, and generally you can't wear a cast. And so my last visit, before I would have to wrestle during the regular season to be allowed to wrestle in region and state, I came back and I had created this device. I had taken one of my football hand pads, I had cut it, I took a piece of pipe, wrapped it, covered it, padded it, went back to the doctor and said, what if I wear this? And he said, okay, but if you break that fuse, so this joint is fused. He's like, if you break that fuse, you lose your finger. And so all I needed was the okay. And so I qualified for state again. Obviously I wasn't in the same shape as I was, missing the entire season, but the fact that I overcame that, really helped to show me that I can do hard things, which is something that I constantly teach my girls now. I have 3 daughters that are all active in sports, and they can do hard things. I can do hard things. As a family, we can. And just because somebody tells you can't doesn't mean it's not possible. So that's probably one of the biggest failures, but one of the greatest blessings I've had in helping to overcome that and gain that mindset.
That's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm going to ask you a question now that I've never asked anyone else on the podcast, because I'm sure it's not unique to Ogden, but I want to ask you about the happiness and the headaches that came with you obtaining land and putting in a district turf, soccer field, and football field. Because I'm not sure a lot of districts have that. So maybe spend a couple of minutes talking about that.
Yeah, that was a unique project. So it all started, I want to say around 2014, 2015. Ogden High doesn't have a lot of land where they're at. They have a football field, and they have baseball and softball field there. We all know that it's difficult to have one field and share that space with football and girls soccer, and then in the spring with boys soccer and track. And so before I was here and for decades before that, Ogden High always went and played at one of the local city parks. And as soccer has grown over the years, it just became more and more difficult with the boys' soccer season starting so early. Oftentimes we still had snow on the ground. It made it difficult. And so we had a group of community members that came to us and said, hey, we really feel like we have support to help raise some funds, and we have connections and we have people that are willing to put forth the effort. If we had some land, we feel we could raise money and get a soccer field built for Ogden High School to use. And our district campus here, we have a large district campus, and we had some land that was undeveloped. It used to be the deaf and blind school, and before that, it used to be, 100 years ago, it used to be a cavalry station, U.S. Army cavalry station. So we had this undeveloped land. The school board was supportive in the idea, hey, we'll provide the land. If you can get some entities to help raise the money, then we feel we could put this project together. And so we had community members and district staff that went to work, and they helped not only everything from grassroots of small donations, $5, $10, $25, $100, up to we ended up having $1 million donation from the Spence Eccles Foundation. We got our first $500,000 and then the last $500,000 for building 2 fields. It had started with 1 field and then grew to 2. And once we got that going and we got the support, and the district, ended up supplementing a little bit just to make sure that we could get that last 500,000. But it was a community effort, and that's why our field or our complex is actually called the Spence Eccles Ogden Community Sports Complex, because it really is a community facility. So yes, Field 1 is used by Ogden High for their boys and girls soccer team. That is their home field. That's where they practice, hold their games. But both fields are used extensively, as you said, for soccer and for football, but also for lacrosse and rugby. And we host events there for Weber State. We've hosted Division I women's soccer games at our complex. We've hosted college rugby matches from we've had Boise State versus SUU and meet here in the middle, and we've hosted those type of games there. We now host an annual soccer tournament. The Ron McBride Foundation supports the Ogden Peaks Classic, and we use that money from the tournament every June to put into a fund to help replace the turf fields that we have. And we're actually going to start that in about 2 weeks, replacing the turf on Field 1 because it's kind of worn out its life, past its warranty period. And so it's really become this amazing community facility. And once we did that, it made it easier for our board and our district leadership with the superintendent and business administrator to have buy-in to put in the turf fields at our high schools. And so we actually have 4 district fields right now that are all turf that are phenomenal for the community to use and for our kids, and really help to make this a place that our kids want to stay at and play in, and invite the community to come play at as well.
That's perfect. Thanks for sharing that. That's an awesome story, and that's I'm familiar with all of those facilities, so you've done a great job. Let's finish up with a couple of questions here, Ken. The first being this: you've got 2 suggestions for a brand new AD, and they need to follow Ken's suggestions in order to become successful. What would your 2 suggestions be?
So my first one, and I think this is applicable for any leadership role, but as an AD, I think it's critical to be a servant leader, where you're out there working alongside your coaches and your staff, whether it's helping to prep the field, whether it's painting the lines or putting the chalk down, running the chain gang, whatever it might be. Take the opportunity to serve them. And granted, that's what an AD does, but sometimes you see people who are behind the desk, or they are doing a lot, but it's not visible. And when others that you are serving see you out there alongside with them, I think it helps you to connect with them on a different level. So that would be my first suggestion. And then my second one would be to take the opportunity to learn from others and ask questions. That's one of the best ways to learn, is to get involved with UIAAA and attend the conferences, because it allows you to build a network and build those connections. And then you're not just doing the job by yourself, right? It makes it more enjoyable. It opens doors and helps you to increase your own knowledge and allows you to expand what you can do, which is, like I mentioned earlier, how we were able to develop the many different programs and procedures that we have here to try and provide phenomenal facilities for our kids, to retain coaches, to make it a place where kids want to be and where coaches want to be. I mean, let's face it, Ogden has a lot of challenges. We have the second highest free and reduced rate in the entire state of Utah. We are landlocked. We don't have an increasing population. And so there are challenges that come with that. But we've tried to build facilities. We've tried to retain coaches and make it a place where and create a culture where people want to be at and where kids want to be at, and allow them opportunities to be successful.
Well said. Great suggestions. Thanks so much for sharing that. We'll finish with this. Ken, what questions should I have asked you that I failed to ask?
Okay. So I hinted a little bit about it earlier. So the thing I was thinking about is, what is something important that I do that people would be surprised to learn about me? And so I currently sit on several foundation boards. Like, I'm on the Ogden School Foundation Board. I'm on the Boys and Girls Club of Weber and Davis counties. I'm actually starting a project with the Salvation Army that we'll have our first meeting next week. But the other foundation board that I sit on is the Ron McBride Foundation. Now, for those of you maybe outside the state of Utah, Ron McBride, longtime coach for the University of Utah. As I mentioned earlier, I went to BYU. BYU and Utah are rivals, right? So it's like Ohio State and Michigan, or North Carolina and Duke. Like, there's not a lot of love lost between the two schools in many instances. And so Ron McBride, great guy, love him. He has a great passion for helping youth. And so he created a foundation to provide after-school programs. And they were doing some work here in Ogden. After he was done at University of Utah, he coached up at Weber State, so he has a love for the Ogden community. He was doing some work with our schools and invited me to be on his board. And I thought, okay, what is this BYU Cougar going to do on Ron McBride's foundation board, right? And I was on their website, and there was this awesome picture of Ron McBride and Lavelle Edwards together, arms around each other, embracing. And for those of you that know, they had an amazing relationship that you usually don't see between coaches of rival schools. And I looked at that picture and I thought, you know what? If Coach McBride and Coach Edwards can come together to do good, I can do something like that as well. In a world that has a lot of hate and a lot of animosity, I can set a better example and show that I can reach out and make connections with people that I may not have a lot in common with. And so I'm actually the vice president of Coach McBride's foundation. I do often get referred to as the BYU guy, or in text messages, hey, the BYU guy is doing this, which I'm totally fine with, because it gives me an opportunity to connect with people that I may not always get to help build bridges and to show that we can come together to make a difference in this world. So I think that's something that people probably would be surprised to know, is that I am an active part of Coach McBride's foundation.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I can't top that. So on that note, that ends this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Ken Crawford, Certified Athletic Administrator, the Executive Director of Student Services and Athletics at Ogden School District. Ken, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks, Hutch. I appreciate the opportunity. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. We'll see you in April at the at the state conference. For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.